Hi, welcome to 2D Game Art for Developers. I've been a developer for several years now, and as probably most developers do, I wanted to develop games. But one of the big issues I ran into with developing games is sourcing graphics for the games. Getting people to do graphics for your games could become expensive. Of course, there are sites like Cartoon Smart, where you could download game assets for free or buy certain assets. I've done this for some of my games, and this works up to a point, especially if you subscribe to their monthly subscription plans or yearly subscription plans, where you get free game assets every month uh, as part of your subscription. But the issue there is some of these assets are done by one artist and the others are done by another, so the art styles don't match. So let's say you develop a game where you want a new character or a new object or a new background. The new artwork might not match the style of what you have in the game already. And if you want your game to be cohesive, you want all your artwork to have the same kind of style. So because of this, I've always wanted to develop the ability to do game artwork, but I can't really draw well. But then a couple of years ago, I came across this site, 2D Game Art for Programmers. This site shows you how to do artwork in a very simple style using vector graphics programs. And I've wanted to follow through with these tutorials for a while, but I never got around to doing it because I was too busy. But recently I thought I might as well follow through with it, and then I realized that the tutorials are for Inkscape, whereas the program that I use most of the time for artwork is Affinity Designer. So I thought, why not, as I learned these things, put up videos showing how to do the same tutorials written for Inkscape uh, on Affinity Designer, so that people who use Affinity Designer can learn about doing 2D game artwork as well. So let's get started with the first lesson, which is to draw shapes or characters using circles. Now, before we start, I should tell you a few things about Affinity Designer for those of you who aren't familiar with it. On the left hand side, you have the tool palette, which has tools for drawing and manipulating shapes and paths and things like that. And on the right hand side, you have the properties palette, where you can do things like change the color or the stroke of a object, or have the layers which where you can organize your artwork and things like that. Your interface might not match mine exactly, but you should be able to find the tools. And if you do not have a specific palette on the right hand side, you can always go to the view menu, from where you can select studio and select the palette you need. So let's get started. First, let's say we want to draw something like a bear, and we want it to be a pink bear. So let's set the color to something like this, which is pink. You can change the colors using the color wheel and the color selector here. But if you want more control, you could always double click on the color circle here to get a more detailed color selection dialog for the specific color tone that you're looking for. Once you selected the color, click on the ellipse tool or use M to select via the keyboard, and you can draw a circle. Well, you can draw a square, it looks like. So apparently I did it wrong. Let's try it again. Ellipse tool, and there you go. Now you'll notice that this is not a perfect circle. but if you hold down shift while you drag, you will notice that the circle is now a perfect circle. Okay, we have our circle. You can use the arrow key up here, which is the move tool, use the V keyboard command to shift to it, and you can move your circle around on the screen. And if you notice, the corners turn into resizable arrows, indicating that the shape can be resized. So you can scale the circle up or down, or you can skew it, and so on. But let's not do that. Now I want to create another circle. You can use the duplicate command, which is on the edit menu. Normally the duplicate command uses command J on Affinity Designer. I set it to command D because I find that easier. If you want to change the keystrokes, you can go to the preferences menu, and from there select keyboard shortcuts, switch to the menu that you want, or the Affinity Designer mode first. Affinity Designer has three modes: the draw mode, where you draw in draw vector graphics; the pixel mode for working with raster graphics; and export mode, where you export artwork. We are working in draw mode, so we select draw mode, and then we can select the menu from here, edit in this case, and you can go down to duplicate, and then set the key, clear the existing key and set a new key. So I've set it to command D because that's more intuitive for me. So I'm going to use command D, and that duplicates the circle as you see here on the layers panel, but the circle is overlapping the previous circle. Now I want this circle to be smaller, so I'm going to just use shift and drag to keep the circle, uh, keep it a circle instead of skewing it or stretching it. And as you see, the circle has become, we made a smaller circle. Let's drag that circle up here, because we are going to give our character ears, and there's the ear, but of course it doesn't look very much like an ear. Well, now it does. Okay, so let's say we want to give an inner ear to give it some depth. So we go command D again to duplicate it and select a slightly darker color. And now we want to resize the inner circle so that it's uh, within the outer ear circle. Now if you shift and resize, the circle will resize upwards. But if you hold command and shift and resize, the circle will stay in place and resize, and you can get it to do something like this, which gives the ear some character. Now as you see on the left hand layer panel, you have the ear circle. You have three different circles. You can select the two for the ear and use command G to group those layers together, and it creates one object which is a group. And let's name it so that we know what is what. So we are going to call this left ear, and there we have the left ear. Now we are going to duplicate the left ear. You see that the left ear has been duplicated in the layers panel, but for that to be used as the right ear, it actually has to be flipped. In this case we don't really need to flip it, but if you flip it, like you have these icons up here which allow you to flip objects vertically or horizontally, to rotate an object and so on. Let's try flipping this. Nothing happened because our ear is basically the same, so you don't really need the flipping object here. But in some cases when the object is not symmetrical, you might need to flip it. So then you can use these icons to do that. Now we want to drag the second ear, which we'll call right ear, on the panel, layers panel, we want to drag it over to the right hand side. Now we can drag the object like this, but then placement might become a problem because you don't know whether they are placed, you know, aligned properly. So one way to do this, let's put the ear back again. We are going, if you hold down shift and drag an object, you will see this line indicating how this object is aligned. Like, basically your object can be dragged or rotated according to 45-degree increments. So you can do 45 degrees, 90 degrees, so on. In our case, we just want it to be at the same level as the other ear. So we drag it here, let go, and now our bear has 2 ears. Okay, now about eyes. What do you think? One easy way to do this, the eye will have to have the white, the black, and the iris. So one easy way to do it would be to take one of the ears, we duplicate it, and we have another ear here. Let's drag that out for a moment, and let's say we want to create the white of the eye. If you, let's call this left eye first. Okay, now left eye, you have the outer circle. Let's make it white. So we can select white from the color circle here, or we can go to the swatches panel, which has recently used colors and specific colors like black and white and gray already available there. So let's select white. Okay, we selected the wrong one, so let's make that black, and we select the outer circle and let's make that white. Okay, now we can select the inner circle again and we duplicate it, and let's make that white and make it smaller, and let's say we drag it somewhere here. Okay, now we have the full eye. We can just drag it onto the bear's face. That looks a little big, doesn't it? So let's make it a little smaller. Okay, that does it, and we can duplicate that, and now we can use flip horizontal to flip this, and as you see the eye flips over, and now we can use the shift drag method to drag the eye over, and now our bear has 2 eyes. How about a nose? Let's select this, shift left, let's select the circle tool, switch our color back to the darker color we used for the inner ear. We can do that by going to the swatches and selecting the darker color. Hopefully that's the right one. Let's see. No, that's not the right color, but we can go with it, or we can switch to the right color using the swatches again. That's not the right one. That's not the right one. Okay. Or I guess we could do this, which selects that color. Actually, we can do it like this. We select the nose. Let's call it nose first, and also let's name our eyes. This is the right eye. Let's call this the nose. Now let's say we want it to have the same color as, no, that's not the nose, that's the head. Here's our nose. Let's say we want it to have the same color as the inner ear. Use the color picker, select the color, and there we go. Okay, the nose looks a little odd, doesn't it? Okay, let's try to give it a little bit of character by adding some shine or something to it. Let's say we duplicate this, give it a slightly darker color, and give it some make it a little warp. Now to do that, these basic shapes can be modified, stretched and skewed, but you can't reshape them. But what you can do is you can use the convert to curves toolbar button up here to convert the ellipses we had into a path. Now we can use the node tool up here to shape things whichever way we want, like, you know, you can just drag the nodes in and give it some shape. So let's say we select the curve and we can rotate it like this. Now it's rotated and we can drag it down and another thing you can do is you can select an object and you can, like, either you can zoom in on the object, which is shift command 0 I believe, and this allows you to have that object zoomed, that particular selected object zoomed in. Now we can do some close-up work. For instance, like, let's say we drag this down, this here, drag this up, and you can adjust the curvature of a point by dragging on these lines, the handles, and you can move the and there you have. Okay, now let's say we select the head, and if you do, you can either select the head and use shift command 0 again to zoom in on the head so that you can see the full head, or you can just do command 0, which shows you the full artboard that you're working on. Okay, now the nose looks much better, right? Now finally we want to do the mouth. Let's switch back to the previous color and using the color picker tool, and then let's draw another ellipsis. Okay, but we want the mouth, we don't want the mouth to be just an ellipsis, so again let's convert that to curves. convert the shape to curves and zoom in a little bit. This time I'm just going to uh, on the Mac you can simply pinch in or pinch out to zoom as well, so that's what I'm doing now. On Windows I'm not sure how it works. Some of these key commands incidentally might be slightly different on Windows, uh, because Affinity Design is available both on Windows and Mac, but for our purposes let's go with the Mac commands. Okay, so I'm just going to drag the mouse, the points down and make the mouth a little wider. And make it a little bit more curved. Okay, that looks a little weird, doesn't it? Okay, let's say we want to give the guy some teeth. You just select the shape of the mouth. Okay, also let's group things and rename things again to make it easier. So we are going to group the nose elements together and call it nose, and then let's take the mouth shape, duplicate it, change the color to white and resize it. Now we can just use the node tool to shape it a little differently, and we can zoom in so that we can see what we are doing. And you can sharpen the edges if you want by just dragging on the handles. And let's zoom out again, and there it is. Our bear is complete. I'm just going to mark the mouth, because always renaming your groups and having objects grouped together is useful. You will find this especially useful later on when you need to export things as specific elements of an object instead of the full object. But for the time being our bear is done. Now let's go through a couple of, you can just do basic variations on this fairly quickly. For instance, let's say you want to do a cat and you want to give this bear pointy ears. That's simple enough. Let's first of all create one full object from this. I'm going to group all the layers together and call it bear, and then I'm going to duplicate the layer. I used Command D, but I could just as easily have right clicked here and selected duplicate from the menu. So then I'm going to make the original bear layer invisible by unchecking this box here, and then I'm going to call this, let's say, cat. Okay, now on our cat layer we take the left ear and we can convert the outer shape into curves. Once we've converted to curves, we can simply drag. Let's hide the inner circle for a bit, and we can do something like this, which turns into a pointy shape. Then we take the inner one, convert to curves, or you could just take the outer one, duplicate it, change the color and resize it. Either way, you're basically doing the same kind of thing. There. Now it's got different shaped ears. And once you have the left ear done, you just delete the right ear. You can use the delete key, or you can use the trash bar icon down here to remove that layer. And you select your left ear, duplicate, flip, and then just reposition. And that's it. And a slightly different version of the original image. And it's as simple as that. You can take shapes and you can modify the shapes. And if you notice, all of this was done with just circles and a couple of the Affinity Designer tools. But that's not all of it. With Affinity Designer, you can also change colors fairly easily. Let's say you want a slightly different variant of the cat color. So you can use this adjustment layer, which makes non-destructive changes. So you simply go here, you select HSL, hue, saturation, luminosity, and if you drag this slider, you notice that you get a totally different version of the cat with different colors. So this way you can easily create multiple different versions of the same character just by changing maybe the color. Or you could also do things like change the saturation level so that the image looks warmer, or then you can change the luminosity so that it looks darker or lighter. And the great thing about this is this does not change your original. Like if you notice, there's a new layer here, which with this indicating that it's a adjustment layer. If you turn off the adjustment layer, okay, sorry, that's not how we do it. If you look under the cat, you have the adjustment layer. If you turn off the adjustment layer, you get the original cat image. And that's about it. You can do other characters similar to this by using different combinations of circles and even other shapes. There's the rectangle tool, the rounded rectangle tool, the triangle tool, and there are other tools which you can select by tapping and holding on a shape to get additional shapes. So you can use any of these and create simple characters which are based on these shapes. So have fun, and next time we'll take a look at some more tools provided by Affinity Designer and how to work with different shapes. See you. Bye bye.